interviewing Dr. Lillian Spencer from Glendale Community College on the history of the Earth. Hello. Hello, welcome to the expert interview.
Thank you.
We have prepared a couple of questions to ask you about the history of Earth today.
Okay.
First of all, were the same proteins that are present in our DNA today, CGAT, present in the first life on Earth?
We think that they were. We think that DNA has been consistent since the beginning of life, which started around, we think, 3.5 billion years ago, according to the fossil record. But of course, DNA doesn't fossilize that well, so we don't have exact information about what was present back that far.
All right. Why do we find most insect bodies fossilized in amber?
Well, insects are incredibly fragile, and fossilization is a pretty destructive process, so it's actually very rare to find any evidence of past life whatsoever. But when insects are trapped in amber, which is the tree sap that hardens, then they are protected from all these other destructive influences, and so they're more likely to be preserved, and therefore we can find them and learn about insects that lived millions of years ago.
And that's why we find them mostly in amber.
Yes.
Have you ever been in the field, or do you just work in the classroom?
I have been in the field. I really enjoy going out and looking for fossils myself. I've done field work in Los Angeles at the La Brea tar pits, which is not actually out in the wild, but there's still fossils that we find there coming out of the tar pits. I've been to Montana looking for tiny, tiny little primates that were living 60 million years ago. And I've also done some field work in Texas as well.
All right. Can you tell us about the Jurassic era, please?
The Jurassic era is very old. It goes back some, let me think, 200 million years ago. So that's definitely not in my particular specialty, but I do know a little bit about the Jurassic era because I know that that's part of the age of dinosaurs, when reptiles evolved into these large, incredibly large land mammals that we know of today as dinosaurs. And they were the dominant forms of life on the planet through the Jurassic time period and the Triassic time period, and also the Cretaceous. And then at the end of the Cretaceous is when dinosaurs went extinct about 65 million years ago.
That is another one of our questions. Why did dinosaurs go extinct?
That's an excellent question. It's one that paleontologists are very curious about. And there have been a number of ideas when something that's that large and substantial, like all these different kinds of dinosaurs, when they disappear from the planet, we're curious. And right now, our best hypothesis to answer that question is evidence for a very large meteor hitting our planet. Hitting the planet somewhere in the vicinity of Mexico, not too far away from here. And that must have had such a huge effect on the climate and on the vegetation that dinosaurs ate that it just completely disrupted everything. And most dinosaurs went extinct. They could not adapt to those changes. But we do have to remember that the dinosaurs did leave one surviving lineage: birds. Birds are descended from dinosaurs, and so we can still think of dinosaurs as being around today.
Okay, last question before we close out. Do you have any dig sites that you find particularly interesting or that you would like to share with us today?
There is one story that I'd like to talk about that goes back to this picture that you see here on the computer screen. This is another one of our ancestors, a human ancestor. This is a partial skeleton of a single individual. So we know that this ancestor lived somewhere around 3 million years ago at a place in Ethiopia called Hadar. And when we find evidence for a single individual, that's like a gold mine in the fossil record, because we know that this individual was a female, for one thing, we can tell that. We know that she was very tiny. She was only about 3 feet tall. And she's been nicknamed Lucy And she's known around the world because she's such a well-known fossil, such a complete fossil, and such an old ancestor of ours. And the area that she comes from in Ethiopia has given us hundreds of fossils of Lucy's species. So it's one of the best known of our ancestors. They're called Australopithecus afarensis, and they have told us so much about some of the other life forms that we have come from.
Well, I do believe that is all the time that we have today.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Spencer, for giving us your time to educate us and our viewers. We will see you next time on the expert interview when we dig deeper into modern-day medicine with Dr. Crusher.